With the amount of condo inventory available in the market right now in the city of Toronto, it can be overwhelming and exhausting to choose. So let's talk about things you need to consider and what are the best and worst types of condos to buy. The first thing to consider is the location. This is true with buying any piece of real estate, and it's true for condos as well. You gotta know things like where are the schools, the fire stations, the amenities, the TTT stations, the crackheads. You gotta know it all. It's not like buying a house in the suburbs where you got homes on both sides. In the city of Toronto, one block, that's right, one block can make a huge difference in your quality of life, and not to mention your rental and resale potential as well. And with that being said, if you're looking to buy a condo in the GTA and want expert advice, schedule a call with me in the description below. Now, another important thing to consider when it comes to location is the infrastructure of the city. These things will not change in 50, 100 years, right? And if you zoom out on the city of Toronto, we're not a ring road city like a lot of these Asian and European cities, which arguably are the best design for major cities. We can't be a ring road city, right? Because Lake Ontario blocks the southern part of the city. So with that being said, the only real ways out of downtown Toronto, the Toronto core, is going eastbound or westbound on the DVP. So with that being said, if you're buying in the Toronto core, you want to be located in areas like Mariner Terrace or places that have quick access to the DVP, both eastbound and westbound. If you're more into the city, even like, a few blocks north, considering the construction that they're doing, that can add like an extra 25 minutes just to get out and onto the DVP. So it's a huge thing to consider when you're buying a condo. Another super important factor is the layout of the condo. Now you might be thinking, it's just a condo, it's just length and width and that's the floor plan. Aren't all condos the same? Well, no. The best condos actually have enclosed kitchens where the kitchens are separated. The reason being, not only is the kitchen separated, kind of creating a separate kitchen and living space, but your living space will now actually be bigger because your kitchen's not bleeding into the living space. Like a lot of these condos you see on the entire wall, all of the appliances, and then the living room's like right there. But if the kitchen's enclosed and you have like a little breakfast bar, that creates a lot of space to work with in the living space, and oftentimes you'll be able to put a sofa, TV, and even a desk in the living room if you have an enclosed kitchen. These are definitely my favorite types of condos. Now, the worst types of condos to buy, in my opinion, are the ones where you have 50 to 100 square feet wasted in some sort of entryway or a hallway. It's pretty much dead space, and at most you can maybe put like a hall tree or maybe like a shoe rack or something. It's basically non-usable space. So even though you're looking at, let's say, two condos, one is a regular layout, one has the 100 square foot wasted on this hallway, you're not really comparing apples to apples, right? They both might say 600 square feet, but at the end of the day, one might only be 500 square feet that's livable. So if you're doing a comp, you can't really, well, you can, but you got to factor in that dead space when you're looking at price per square foot. Another thing to consider with layouts is, and I've seen this so many times, I've seen thousands of condos, is, and you can, like when you look at photos on MLS, sometimes, the photographer, I am one too, we deliberately hide things, let's say, in our photographs. But when you go into the unit, you got to be very cognizant of things like little pillars or obstructions in the wall where it makes it difficult to put furniture. So for example, if you got like a little, like imagine a bedroom like this, but you have like a little something coming out of the wall here in the bedroom, well, now you're forced to put your bed in one direction, and that really limits the space. Same thing with the living room. Maybe it's something, that has to do with the foundation of the condo, or maybe they have like HVAC stuff in there. For whatever reason, it's not a full length times width room. And yeah, that makes a huge difference because most condos are like, less than 800 square feet. So even a little obstruction like that, man, it's going to make the space feel a lot smaller. So you got to watch out for those. Another thing to consider is the age of the condo. Now, newer might not always be better. Just like with cars, for example, the new cars with the remote keys, they're super easy to steal. Whereas the old cars with, like, you know, the key ignition where you have to push it in and start the car, those are a little more challenging to steal. So newer is not necessarily better, and it's the same with condos. A lot of these new condos, they were built with speed, they were rushed, the quality might not be as good, and most importantly, the developers are just trying to sell as many units on a floor as possible to make the most amount of profit, right? So what ends up happening is a lot of these units are super, you know, the bedrooms are small, the living space is small, they're like long and narrow, and they're just copy pasted on the entire floor. And it's not really the developer's fault, because cost of goods has increased like crazy in terms of labor, infrastructure, permits are super expensive, taxes are crazy. So the developer has to make money somehow. So I don't really blame the developers. It is what it is, right? But yeah, something to consider. Just because a condo is newer doesn't necessarily mean it's better. A lot of these condos built 10, even 20 years ago have huge living spaces, open concept, and have big bedrooms as well. So something to keep in mind when buying is the age of the condo. Now, that's not to say that all new condos are like this. I've seen a lot of great condos built with quality finishes, open concept layouts, great views, things like that. So it's definitely by no means a rule of thumb, but something to keep in mind. Another major thing to consider is the view. What kind of view do you get? I love a nice view. Most of my clients do as well. Some don't care for it as much, but it always is a factor. And there are many instances, and I know personally of friends of mine who have moved into a condo and, you know, admired this great view only to have it blocked by another condo in, you know, a year's time. So you really got to take into consideration everything that could be demolished, you know, let's say like, you know, older buildings in front, things like that, or maybe there's a parking lot. Those things are likely to already have been, you know, pre-approved in terms of another condo going up there. So look for things like parks or already built infrastructure that's, you know, kind of lower, harder to tear down, or even things like intersections where you know that there's not going to be a new condo built there, at least relatively soon. But you never know, Olivia Chow might chop down a park to build a condo.
I would love to be your new mayor.
And the last thing to consider is the property management. I always equate property management to, like, you know, the software on your car or your Tesla or something like that. Although it's not the car itself, it does still affect the driving experience, and in this case, the living experience. Let's say you have a bad property management. They don't enforce rules like, you know, no Airbnbs, no short-term rentals. And then, you know, people have parties at your condo, even though it's an owner-occupied condo. It's different if you're an investor, but let's say you're an owner occupied and you're looking to buy as an end user, and condo property management, they don't enforce these rules. Well, now, you know, your condo is going to be chaos. People are going to look to sell. It's going to decrease your property value, things like that. A lot of these cases do happen in Toronto. So property management is super important. Their reputation is super important. Another thing, they might just be lazy, right? The people working there, they might not be on top of their maintenance and repairs. And now, you know, they neglect those things, and now your condo fees go up because there's not enough in the reserve fund, right? So super important to find a condo with a reputable property management team that are on top of things. Super, super important. Now, there's a ton of other factors to look at before buying a condo. We've barely scratched the surface. Maybe I'll save that for another video. But in this video, I just wanted to give you guys a high-level overview of some of the main things to look at before buying a condo that affects most people. And keep in mind, each individual buyer is different too. You might be looking at an investment property. You might be looking as an end user to move in yourself. You might be looking to move in yourself and rent it out in a few years. You might be looking to hold for 5 years or 25 years. You might be looking to hold for a few years and then upgrade, get a HELOC and buy another property, right? So depending on your own situation, it could affect what you end up buying or what you should buy. So that's it for this video. I'll keep it nice and sweet. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.